Well, good evening and welcome to the first of two HuddleUK podcasts this week. We couldn't just do one episode with two massive games this Sunday, so we thought we'd bring on all of the writers from the website to go to battle for their teams. And we're starting with the NFC, the earlier game on Sunday. We've got Nathan, our Eagles writer, and Chris all the way from Australia. Thank you very much for waking up this morning. So it's already Friday for you. It's Thursday that myself and Nathan are talking. So thank you for getting up and doing this as the Commanders writer. We did a Commanders episode last week. I think, in truth, both me and Andy, the guest on last week, didn't think the Commanders would still be in it. But here we are. It's the big game. And we'll start with you, Nathan. And just a bit about your background. Eagles fan. How did you come to be a Philly fan?
Yeah, well, it's actually, it's different from other people's stories, I think, because it's only been, I reckon, 3 years now. Because I was well, since I was younger, I've always been like a big NBA fan. I was dead young and I got handed a game from the Xbox and I kind of just flew with it. And it was a lot easier to watch than NFL was. I got easily it was more accessible. And for years I was more into players. I was rather following like Kyrie Irving and LeBron James and things like that. And that's when I decided, because I'm a Sunderland fan, so our fan base is very emotional. And when we lose, board out, manager out, we want you gone. We're going to win the league. Mm-hmm. And then obviously, I'm bang into a show called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So they start talking about the Eagles and like Philadelphia in general. And everything kind of made sense to us. So I started watching the 76ers play a lot and they were terrible at first. Like I had to stick through some pretty bad seasons. Then it just progressively got better. For the last few years, I've just been sick of watching football. So I thought I flicked through actually Aussie rules. I've got uncles over there in Perth who love the Fremantle team. So I started trying to watch that and it was not happening for us. And then I flicked over one day and it just by chance, it was the Eagles playing, I think it was the Detroit Lions. And it was a great game. It was the year of the Super Bowl run for the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a great game. It was back and forth. It was class. And from then, I've just been stuck into the Eagles. I've just loved them.
And Chris, to shake your head right at the start, Nathan said about 3 years. How many years have you been a Washington fan? A few more.
Yeah, what a fair weather fan, eh? Just a few more. I think he might be a tad younger than me. I think there might be a clue in that. So, so it's like 30 odd years. Yeah, I mean, it's a long time. About 1982, you can do the maths. 33 years.
Because I think you wrote for the website recently about the glory years of Washington around that time when you started watching. What sort of memories do you have of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. Looking back on it, I just picked the best team who was winning and sort of judge myself for that a little bit now. But at the time, I just thought they were great. I just fell in love with them straight away. It was just the Washington were always in it. They were always winning or competing. You know, they were in the Super Bowl one year. Next year, they were in but lost to the Raiders. I mean, they were just in it all the time. I think 9 out of the 10 years they were in the playoffs. It was just great stuff. I loved it.
It's been less successful recently. Your first playoff win now in 19 years, I believe, this year. A great one against Tampa, an even better game against Detroit last week. Mm-hmm. Did you have much hopes going into that game? Did you believe? I mean, there's a lot of belief around Washington right now.
I think it's it's you can't believe your rookie quarterback's going to take you all the way. I mean, we were the second worst team in the NFL last year. You can't really think that it's going to be that much different. And the history has been so bad for the last 20 to 30 years that you just couldn't have seen this coming. And obviously, as a fan, you have every season you have hope and you think, come on, this year we're going to do something different. You just watch the train, the car crash happening. So you're sort of waiting for the bubble to burst in a funny sense. And even in the Detroit game, they said, oh, it was 1:30 left, and they said an onside kick and a touchdown will save Detroit here. And I went, I can't even enjoy the last 1:30 seconds. I actually my brain went through it, man. It is possible they could come back from this. So yeah, but the Detroit game, I think, will have changed a lot of people's opinions. That was like a legit win. The only thing I've said is that they were really racked with injuries, Detroit, to be fair. So they had an amazing record, right? And they deserved to be where they were, but they weren't, it wasn't really a fair game in many ways. So I take that with a bit of pinch of salt, the win.
Well, it's a cliche, isn't it, in sport? But you can only beat what's in front of you. But you are absolutely right. I think they've got an entire NFL caliber defense on IR, which is
Yeah,
absolutely
that will
staggering.
kill you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, fortuitous for you, good for Washington. Speaking of Washington, Nathan, that is where you live.
Yeah, I was hoping we wouldn't bring it up, but
The UK Washington, of course, that is up north. How did you enjoy the game? It was another sort of snowy game last week, another Saquon Barkley masterclass. I think when he signed in the offseason, a lot of people turned their heads at that, thinking this is going to be a problem. A bit like when Derrick Henry went to the Ravens, and it's proven that way. He's been as good as anyone in the National Football League this year, hasn't he?
yeah, 100%. It's been, I think it was one of them when you get them in your head as a fan, you build him up to these heights that you don't actually know if he's going to achieve what you've set him out to do. Then obviously the New York Giant fans, as soon as he kind of came along, you know what they're like straight away. They just slated him. They said he was no good. He's never going to last. And obviously the way we ended last year, everything was kind of up in the air anyway. We had no coordinators at the start of the year. It was a blowout loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it was kind of one of them where no matter who you bring in, there was other things that had to be put in place for us to achieve what we know we can, but so when he came in, I was optimistic. And on Sunday, I just think he's just continuing to show what a class act he is. I think it speaks volumes for everyone in the offensive line, not just him. Because I think consistently throughout the year, they have had to put the bodies on the line. We've had Cam Jurgens come in to replace Jason Kelsey, who's, I would say, he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He was brilliant. So for him to come in and fill up them shoes, he had massive shoes to fill. But on Sunday, I think it kind of was one of them you knew you had to score early. If we weren't going to score early, it was going to be a very long game with the snow coming in. Then obviously he went on that. Hurts got his 40 yard running pretty early on, and then Barkley started to get going, and it was I thought we were going to run away with it, but then that's when, in good old Philadelphia fashion, we slowly let them come back in, and we've shown it. I think it feels like every time we get a good lead, and we've got a 7-point lead, but the other team have the ball, and it's short against, I didn't want to talk about it too much, but against the Commanders in December when we lost, we just get cut through like a hot knife in butter. It just seems like, despite having a great defense, it seems like in that last drive of the game, they just got to cut through. Yes, so I was very nervous, but very relieved at the end to get the win.
There were some great stats with Barkley that came out of that game, and I'm not going to remember the other players involved, but he has had 4 touchdowns of over 60 yards against the Rams, just the Rams this season, which is the most. The previous record was 4 against the entire season, and Barkley has done that against a single team this year. He's now 3rd in rushing yards on a single season for postseason and regular season combined. I think he's got it up here, 150 away from breaking the record with 1 or maybe potentially 2 games still to go. So a phenomenal season. I know you wrote about it as well for the website about whether he'd be risked in week 18. It was against the Giants, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I completely understand Nick Sirianni's decision. I get it. When you see
Was
how
that
many
against the Giants? I cannot believe they rested him against the Giants.
Such a tough call, though. I was kind of on the fence on that one. I was like, look, I know what we're like going into the playoffs. Last year, Hurts was hurt, and then we'll see what's happened to the Lions. Their defensive line was shattered, so it's one of them. And we've seen it against the Commanders as well. We lose Hurts or Barkley, that changes everything. We are not the same team. So to give ourselves a chance, as much as I wanted him just to have a half against the Giants, I really thought he might have a chance. Maybe it was 100 yards or say 70 yards. He might have said, well, we'll give you a half, see if you can get it. But in the end, he's done the right thing. But it's a bit of a party pooper moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I think all fans were really hoping to see him do that and try and take on Dickerson's record. But if Sirianni, you get judged only by winning Super Bowls as a head coach, and he's got to put that first. So don't blame him. And you mentioned Hurts' injury, which is a lovely segue to the next part, which I want to talk about, which is sort of the news this week. Hurts is limited in practice.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
It's a knee injury. He says he's going to play, but he was limited today. It's going to be such a silly question, Nathan, and I realise that as they say it. Can you win without Hurts on Sunday?
No, I don't think we can. I don't want to build you up too much, but we're seeing with Kenny Pickett, I don't think he's not the worst quarterback. And we had Tanner McKee come in, who was brilliant as a third choice, but I think it just changed the whole outlay of what you've designed for the year. Like, this whole offensive line is planned around a dual threat. Whereas Kenny Pickett, he can throw the ball all he wants and he can hand off to Saquon Barkley, but then he's just going to stand there. He's got nothing else to give. Whereas Hurts, he showed it last week. He can run for 40 yards. But the problem you've got is, even if he is fit, we've already seen what them commander blokes are like. They want to take a cheap shot and take him out anyway, aren't they? We know exactly what yous are like. So,
Where does that come from?
The shots are being applied early on. I love it. This, you did put your hands together and pray there when I mentioned that Hurts was injured. He is, as a Washington fan, that's great news, and you're gonna have to go after him early in this game.
He's like an old version of Daniels, is the way I look at Hurts. Just slightly faded, but still he's got a bit left in the tank, I think. No, in seriousness, I mean, Hurts is great. I mean, he's like, he's a proper threat. I actually thought because in the game we beat the Eagles. Like, we lost one game against them in this season, and then we beat them the second time. But I talked about that. It was because Hurts went down. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Like, Hurts goes down, well, that changes the game, right? So, Pickett actually, I thought, played really well when he came in that game. As a sort of fan, you go, brilliant, this is in the bag immediately. Like, Hurts is gone, watch this. And Pickett came in and led the drive and scored a touchdown. I was like, what? That's not supposed to happen, So I don't know. I think Pickett's not that bad. And I think, the Eagles are not a one-trick pony. And obviously, briefly back on Saquon Barkley, I don't think I'll ever forgive the Giants for letting the Eagles have him. Like, seriously, you don't give a start to somebody in your group. I mean, it's just crazy. It's mad. And I just like Saquon Barkley has just been a beast all year. Like, what were they thinking? So I kind of like, if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, it's because they gave him Saquon Barkley. Nothing against the rest of the team. It's like, in one move, you just gifted them it, right? He's that talented. In the last game against us, he got half the yardage of the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, on his own. It's just crazy.
He is having one of the best seasons a running back has ever had.
He is. And no, sorry, but the Commanders, their weak spot is what? Run defense. So, I mean, they gifted him the perfect weapon against us as well.
So blame the New York Giants if you lose.
Big time.
The player who was put up at the press conference on Thursday for the Commanders was Zach Ertz, who scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter against the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field earlier this season, and the 2-point conversion, if my memory serves me correctly. Obviously, a former Eagle back in his sort of prime, I guess, was one of the tight ends everyone wanted to talk about when he was playing for Philadelphia. But he said today that he's fallen back in love with playing football under Dan Quinn at Washington. I just feel like sometimes, the stories seem like they're written in advance. And he sort of seems like one of those players. He got a touchdown again against the Lions as well, despite being a bit older, maybe 32, 33, is one of the key weapons or consistent targets for Daniels.
Yeah, look, tight ends are a huge part of the league. I'm a huge fan of a good tight end, and you can list hundreds of huge tight ends. Kelsey for the Chiefs is one of the obvious ones. Gronkowski from the Patriots. You need a big man to throw the ball at the face of, so you can hit him in the end zone. They're hard to cover. They always end up in a mismatch. And it also, once they get the ball in open space, they're usually good. So I knew he was going to be a kind of end zone threat. And obviously, we're a bit one-dimensional with McLaurin, or we have been a bit one-dimensional with McLaurin. So we needed more targets. You need to force the defense to cover someone, not just McLaurin with three bodies, right? So, and a tight end is a classic end zone target. So yeah, I thought that was a good signing. And also, we don't seem capable of finding a normal tight end for ourselves. Every time we draft one, they turn out to be useless. I mean, so, fine, just go get one. Yeah.
I had such high hopes for Ben Sinnott this year, and I did.
Every time we draft one, I'm like, this is it. We've got one. No, we don't. Don't know how we do that.
You say that because being one-dimensional with McLaurin and this Eagles defense, the secondary has been transformed this year. Two incredible rookies in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who were both nominated in the shortlist and the 5 players for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I don't think either of them will win it. I think Jared Verse will probably take that award for the Rams. That's not taking anything away from DeJean and Mitchell. Did you expect them to come on so quickly, Nathan? Because, as I said, they've transformed that secondary.
I think out of the two of them, I expected Quinyon Mitchell because coming out of college, the big thing the experts were talking about was his coverage, and that's kind of exactly what we've got from him. He's never done anything spectacular. He's still got his interceptions and stuff to work on. He's dropped quite a few, but his coverage is spectacular. The wide receivers he's went up against, and they've came out, especially in the end zone. It's been unbelievable. Cooper DeJean was a weird one because I know my friend's a Packers fan. And he was banging on about him the whole of the draft process. Like he kept mentioning him. So when we picked him, I was like, I didn't know much about him. But it was one of them where he wasn't starting games at the start of the year. He was kind of more on the special. Well, we'll see him now. He's a punt returner in the specials team. He does a lot of that. But at cornerback, they've both been revelations. I'm kind of on the same page as you, though. If out of the two of them was going to win the award, it would be Quinyon Mitchell, but I just think Verse has been so good for the Rams, I can't imagine that one of them's going to win it.
And on the flip side of the ball, on the offensive rookie of the year, Jayden Daniels is the heavy favourite to win that, and I imagine, Chris, you have no arguments about that.
I don't think anybody can. I mean, we were talking about MVPs in general. I hate to put it like this, but if we win the Super Bowl, he should be the MVP of the league, not just the rookie of the year, just the full MVP, because one man changed everything, right? And even if we don't, I mean, I'm not arguing for him being the MVP of the league at this stage, but he's certainly the rookie of the year. And that's not to take away from any other player. I mean, it's just. You read what everyone's saying about him now, and I think it's a bit much, to be honest. But I've not heard anybody say anything bad about him, right? Usually, there's all this like his footwork, something, right? Something about his reads, is this. Detroit blitzed him every other play in that last game. Every other play, literally, half their things was blitzes, and I swear it just played into his hands. He just they didn't sack him once, 35 blitzes, and you didn't get him once. That's just crazy. He's a rookie. How can he handle it? As a fan, I was more tense than he was, quite clearly, right? Way more. I just don't. He's a phenomenon. And you sort of wait for the bubble to burst again. He just shows no sign of it. I don't know what he's got, but it's just magic, right?
It does make you question. I think this is a debate that any NFL fan could have for hours on end about how the MVP shortlist is determined, because you look at it today and Jared Goff, who's had a great season, is one of the shortlisted players in that, who had 4 picks last weekend, has got arguably as many weapons around him as any other quarterback in the league. And then Jayden Daniels doesn't get a sniff of the MVP award when, McLaurin's obviously good, but when you compare the weapons, they're not on the same level at all. So, I'm with you 100%. So we'll move on. We'll get into the nitty gritty here, but then, so the big game, 8:00 on Sunday, Eagles Commanders. I think it's going to be a really close one again. I don't see this being particularly one-sided. How would you sum up the season? I guess, Chris, it's easier for you because Washington have gone above expectations already at this stage. Nathan, what was your hope for the start of the season? And if you were to lose on Sunday, will the season be classed as a success for you or not?
I think the way the season's panned out, I wouldn't call it a success if we get beat. If you told us at the start of the season we were going to get to the NFC Championship game, I would have snapped your hands off, because I think the way the last year ended, we had 2 new coordinators. Vic Fangio, there was a lot of talk about him being old and outdated, and then obviously 4 games into the season, we're 2-2, another blowout to the Buccaneers. There's so much turmoil in the bye week we managed in week 5. It kind of felt like we'd be lucky to get to the playoffs. And if we were going to, it would be because of Barkley more than anything else. And then I think the way the season's panned out, with us just having such a good defense, I'd be more disappointed if we didn't reach the Super Bowl. But the issue with me is how good the Commanders have came on. And I feel like when you watch someone like Jayden Daniels and how he's grown in confidence with every single playoff game he's played, and the way he went to Detroit and put up, was it 41 points in the end? Was it
45,
what was the score in the
I
end?
think.
45.
Well, that's their case. I know they've got defensive players out, but to do that as a rookie is just, it's scary, isn't it? So I would be disappointed if we didn't get the Super Bowl. I wouldn't class it as a success because I think that's what you're judged on. You can get any NFC Championship games you want, but if you can't reach a Super Bowl and win it, then it's kind of one of them whereas you haven't done much at all, have you? So,
Chris, you won't be obviously happy if you lose on Sunday. That would be a ridiculous thing to say. But this is already above where you were expecting for this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for the last X years, it's been what's we call it? You'd be lucky to get a winning season. So, most of the fans predicted, there was a lot of negativity coming into this because of the past, and so most of the fans would said, we're going to have 5 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins, something like that. And then as it went past that number, we got to 7-2, and I was like, I must be dreaming here, and then we promptly lost 3 games, one of which the Eagles, and we went, aha, here it goes, it was a dream. But yeah, the only thing is I've got this thing that if we get in to the Super Bowl, we have to become either the best team in the league or the second best. So because we went from the second last, I would love to see the poetry of being at least the second best, So, and obviously I get that whole if you don't make the Super Bowl thing, you feel like if you've got this far, you're just one game from the Super Bowl. I actually don't care if we win or lose it. I just want to get into it because that's such a milestone thing. You can at least say we were in it. And obviously once you're in it, it is anybody's game. I genuinely, it's lame, but the belief with Jayden Daniels is put us in the game, we've got a fighting chance. So yeah, I'd be gutted. I mean, there's no two ways about it. If we don't get through, but I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to be saying that because if you'd asked me at the beginning, like the same sort of comment, asked me at the beginning of the season, would you take that record this far, etc.? Yeah, it'd be over the moon.
What's the argument then for the Washington Commanders winning this game? Where do you see their edge being?
Well, like I said, before this started, picking it on paper, as it were, you sort of got to go with the Eagles. I mean, I think they're the favourites, but then Detroit was the favourites. So, it's simply all on Jayden Daniels. I mean, he was borderline perfect against the Lions. Like some of his throws, I mean, there's one to De'Ami Brown, getting into the details. De'Ami Brown caught that ball with someone covering his eyes up, right? And I swear the reason he caught the ball is because it's exactly where it needed to be. He just put his hands there and the ball just went stunk, right? You just had to close your hands like some sort of Venus flytrap when it hit them, it was just a perfect throw and it was on a blitz in pressure and he just dropped it right in there. It's all on him. And he has the poise and the capability to just read. I can't comment on this, but he just reads it. He doesn't get flustered. He sees what's available. If he needs to run, he runs, etc., etc. He protects himself. It's all on Jayden Daniels, and obviously the rest of the team, etc. I think injuries are always a big thing. Hurts went down last time. That gifted us the game. The other thing is that obviously my biggest fear is Barkley. Without disrespect, I mean I know the Eagles' defense is actually their kind of secret weapon, sort of, right? But Barkley's the thing that I fear the most because of the nature of our team. But then I know that Gibbs was the same thing with the Lions. He was a beast. He took us apart. But essentially, if you keep them off the field, then there is no Saquon Barkley. So if we have the ball and we control the game, then it's not a problem. And also, if we get a lead. That's the other thing. The Eagles, if they get a good lead and they can just run the ball, we're in trouble, is my opinion. Which doesn't look likely with Daniels. I mean, we score fast, right? We can score fast at any time. So it seems unlikely that Eagles are going to get a nice, comfy lead. And if we can get a comfy lead, then I think you're always worried your coach forgets to run the ball when you're behind, right?
It was Andy Lockhart from the 1 Point Safety Show who we had on last week as a Commanders fan. And I think his exact words were, when you have JD5, you've got a chance. And that really proved to be the case. And that De'Ami Brown catch, which you allude to, it's incredible. I've watched it so many times. He, as you say, you literally can't see anything. It kind of reminds me when Fitzpatrick was at the Dolphins and he threw that catch when he had his mask being pulled. It was the catch equivalent of that throw, which was incredible. Nathan, I guess same question to you then. The weapons are there for Philadelphia and home field advantage as well. Where do you see the biggest edges being for the Eagles?
I think, the home advantage can be a blessing or a curse in Philadelphia, right? Because, if Jayden Daniels, like you see, he gets down the field so quickly. If we go a couple of possessions out and then Jayden Daniels takes a 14-point lead, that crowd's going to turn pretty
They'll
quick.
be booing. They'll be booing.
So they'll be booing probably after 7, to be honest. I think it won't take long at all. But I think for us, we've got to make sure we don't. I love to rely on Barkley, but I imagine the Commanders are going to load the box a lot and probably go man coverage on AJ Brown and Smith. So if AJ Brown can get one-on-one with one of the defenders and Hurts can find him, I think that's where we might get a bit more success.
Lattimore's a shutdown at the moment.
We'll have to see.
We'll see.
We'll have to see. But it's one of them. Again, if Hurts takes an early sack and his knee's no good, that's game. To me, it's game over. So it's a tough one, but I think Eagles can take it as long as we don't just rely on Barkley so heavily all game that we're not relying on AJ Brown and Smith. And Dallas Goedert has been very, very good when he's came back in from injury. So that's maybe another one to watch. We just need to score early. If that crowd turns, I think that's where the game becomes quite hostile. And
sorry, that was what happened in Detroit as well. You could feel the crowd and the change, and it affects the team as well. Like this whole cheering stadium and the feeling like this is the inevitability, and you can hear this isn't going well. This isn't the plan.
Great. I think
so.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I think with the Commanders having the record they did last year, I think Philly fans are taking for granted who we're actually coming up against. This isn't the Washington side of last year. This is Jayden Daniels' side. And it's a very, very good Commanders team. So, but Philly fans, when you're in that stadium and you've been tailgating for 3 hours, I don't think that's really in your head. So it's an interesting one for sure, I think.
Can I ask, has anyone checked what the weather forecast is? Because obviously, the weather is going to make a difference, isn't it?
I just checked before. They reckon it's going to be cold, but there's no snow this time round. They don't think. So again, weather plays a part.
It does, yeah.
It says it's expected windy conditions as well. So, I'm not sure that's where you want Zane Gonzalez after the stretch. The other game.
Want him full stuff.
To plug the website and your own article, Nathan, from yesterday, the other player you've not touched on there who you wrote about was Jalen Carter, who's a second year, had an incredible game against the Rams, 2 sacks and a forced fumble. He's a wrecking ball on the defensive side of the ball.
He is. I didn't know what he would be like this year, to be fair, coming in, because like I say, last year it was one of them where it wasn't really fair because the whole defense and switching coordinators halfway through the season in your rookie year, who's got to do well with that? But this lad he's a unit as well, mind. I think he's 320 pounds or something ridiculous like that. If he can hit it's if, by the way, let's highlight that if.
He can't.
Well, we'll change it when he hits Jayden Daniels early on. It could cause problems, but he is one hell of a player, and it's like a defensive tackle. It's something you're going to need in this game because, like we've mentioned, the crowd already. If he can get an early sack, that raises the whole roof, doesn't it? But then flip turn, if he doesn't get any sacks and Jayden Daniels starts running the game, it's on its head completely.
It's funny. I can't remember which game we had, but there was 8 sacks against Jayden Daniels, and that is bearing in mind that he escaped so many. I swear that game would have been 15 if it wasn't Jayden Daniels. So our line is not exactly legendary. I think that's fair to say, and we've obviously lost Sam Cosme, who's a really good player. He's been really loved by everyone this year. So on the one hand, but then that was true against the Lions. 30. I know they're not the same defense as the Eagles, but I don't know. That's going to be one of those really interesting ones. I think this could go horrible fast for the Commanders in that way. Coming in off the Lions game, there's this feeling of like, oh my God, we're invincible. Which I don't share, but I can understand it, right? We could get a horrible reality check here. The rivalry between these two teams, traditionally, again going back to my period, in the ancient years, Washington had this. The Eagles, well, they were, good for playing, well done. But in the last, 8 matchups, the Eagles have won 7 of them. So the last 4 years, Eagles have got our number. To me, the Eagles are a team that are just like predictably going to beat us. And it's bloody annoying to see, right? So yeah, but
you're only as good as your last game, and you beat them in the last one. So you never know. Who, if you were coming together then for an answer on this one, looking to the other side in the AFC, who would you both prefer to play in the Super Bowl should your team win on Sunday?
I think if I can go, I would prefer, as much as I think Josh Allen is brilliant, I think I prefer to play the Bills. I don't think Kansas City have been good at all this year. Their problem is they didn't know how to get stuff done,
Rubbish.
don't they?
Rubbish.
Useless,
Terrible team.
Detest them, by the way.
Useless.
Detest them.
Yep.
I'm a Chargers fan. We've got to play them twice a year.
Oh,
You know,
man. Sorry,
Well, we
dude.
back
I
news
didn't
every
know.
time. I'm not a fan.
Chris, who would be your pick? Would you agree with Nathan?
Sorry to interrupt, Nathan. You know, it's just the Chiefs. Yeah, exactly. What is it about the Brits? I just hate the Chiefs all of a sudden. Is it just because they're winning? Probably. You know, I don't know.
100%. I think for me, it's more that they just know. Like I've said this about Mahomes. I'll back Brady to the hills. I think he was probably the best of all time. But Mahomes down the stretch, he's got to be in the conversation because every time he gets the ball, it was seen in the Super Bowl last year. You're just going to back him. He just seems to know how to get it done in the right moments. So that's why I'm probably leaning towards playing the Bills. And that's no disrespect to Josh Allen. But I think at the start of the year, I don't know what you two were thinking, but for me, the Bills were kind of out of the question. I think Stephon Diggs had moved to the Texans.
Yeah.
And I thought, I just didn't know how to get on. But Josh Allen has been brilliant, but I'd still rather the Bills over the Chiefs.
It's a very nice segue for me to plug tomorrow's episode where we have our Bills writer, Jake, on. And I know Jake personally in real life as well. And he's very much on that bandwagon of people ruled the Bills out before the start of the season because of all the players they lost. And he's very much team Josh Allen for MVP because of that. Similar to your argument about Daniels, Chris, with the lack of weapons. Diami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, these aren't household names particularly, but I think it was Zaccheaus who got 7 catches and a load of yards against the Eagles last time out.
So yeah, I mean, again, going back to your previous question, I would rather play the Bills, and partly just as the lamest idea is red versus blue. It's a much prettier game to watch. You know, the NFL is a very pretty game, right? That's one of the reasons we're fans. It looks great. It looks fantastic, right? Red on red. You know, we just had. I mean, the Lions Commanders game just looked fantastic, right? It's the blue and the thing and the colours. It looked brilliant, right? Which at least it's a team not like the Eagles who wear green and try and hide on the pitch. Like, someone have a chat to that. Again, though, to be fair, right, you used to have this wishy-washy light green uniform that just said, we don't have any conviction in anything we do. But now you've got this sort of deadly dark green. It's much more, the new uniform's much better. And obviously you now win. So, what's in the uniform, mate?
I don't think I'd want to play the Chiefs for the storyline as well. I know that doesn't really affect or potentially doesn't have a huge effect on what happens on the field, but I just wouldn't want the conversation of the three-peat with my team going into it, because if the Chiefs win on Sunday, that's all anyone will talk about for 2 weeks, head into New Orleans.
Yeah, I think what Nathan said as well, the Chiefs just find a way. Like, I mean, and I don't really like Mahomes, but I also agree with Nathan. I thought he was going to go a different way with his comment, but Brady is this, like, the greatest and everything, but you've got to look at what Mahomes has done. That looks like the new greatest, doesn't it? I mean, and yeah, he's just amazing. So he's in a league of his own, kind of. In fact, they asked Kirk Cousins, they said, what's it like to watch him play? And his response was absolutely brilliant, for all Kirk Cousins' failings. And he said, it just looks like he's playing a different game. And I thought it was an absolutely honest and brilliant answer. He just seems to know everything that's happening before it's even happened, right? He's just in utter control of the game. And of course, for the Bills, poor Bills fans, like what they've done to them repeatedly, the Chiefs. It's just like, oh God, if you're a Bills fan, I don't know what your Bills fan thinks of this game coming in, but like, seriously, anybody but the Chiefs must have been what they were saying, right?
Yeah, but he was actually saying to me that the Bills are known for losing 4 in a row, and this would be 4 in a row against the Chiefs if it happens. So they're trying to avoid that for a second time. And you mentioned Kirk Cousins. He impressed me more in one appearance of punditry than he did in several as a quarterback this year. So he's definitely got a future in TV if he doesn't on the field, because it went a bit sour there in Atlanta. Keeping the answer short then, just a score prediction, putting your money where your mouth is for the two of you. Don't have to back your own team, but what do you think the score will be on Sunday? We'll go to you as the home team. Nathan, you first.
Oh, on the spot. Let's go. I don't want to do this. Um,
I'm going to be able to clip it up when you're wrong as well. It'd be great.
let's see it. 27-24 Eagles.
27-24 to the Eagles. Okay, very, very close. Chris.
Could I do reverse psychology here? I'm going to say 38-33 to the Eagles so that I can cheer when I was wrong.
Flip it. You'll see this on social media. It's going fun. 38-33. You're going through a reverse way of thinking. You'll predict the Eagles.
If I predict Washington and we don't win, I'm just never going to forgive myself. So I'm taking it easy.
They say never bet. They say never bet on your own team. That is fair. Okay, so we're both going for an Eagles prediction. We can't have a winner. We don't know the winner, obviously, on Sunday, but I've got a little tiny game prep for the two of you so we can have a winner of a head-to-head here on the podcast. The simplest game that you'll ever imagine. I'm going to go back and forth. Again, we'll start with Nathan as the home team. I'm going to give you some players from your own respective teams, and I simply want you to try and tell me what number jersey they wear.
No, Jesus
We're going
Christ.
to start. If it helps, on tomorrow's episode, they were very, very good. Very good at this
doesn't
game.
Help me in the slightest.
They've set the bar high.
Quick, get the team roster up, Nathan. Like, where is it? Google.
Not enough to do that.
I'm starting very easy for the two of you. I'm being nice here.
I don't even know.
Starting with Eagles. Nathan, for an easy 1 point, Jalen Hurts.
1.
There we go. See, nice and easy.
There we go. We'll take that.
Well, ends here.
I don't believe this. Oh, God.
Just to keep it easy for you, Jayden Daniels.
I don't know his number. I don't know. He's just so good, right? I just don't see him as a number man. You can't.
It went from RG3 to J.
Oh, he's 6'4". I think
he's earlier in the show. Yeah.
Oh dear, man. Sorry, guys. To every Washington fan out there, I'll hang my head and I'll go now, right? I've got 8. Yeah, 8. Sure.
Did you see it 5?
It is 5. Yeah, it's number 5 for JD5. Yes. Okay.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's why they call him. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, it's 1-0 early start to Nathan. It doesn't bode well for you, Chris, I have to say.
This is not my game.
Devonta Smith.
Oh, 20 years?
28. No, it's number 6 for Smith.
No,
ask me McLaurin next. You're going to do it, aren't you?
I am.
No.
17.
17.
There we go. Okay, we'll level it up. 1-1. Nice. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball then. The player we were just talking about, Nathan, Jalen Carter.
5?
5? No, very far off as well. 98.
Wow.
Carter. Look as far away as it could have been there.
I don't know my quarterback. Look, dude, I'm never going to laugh at you. Right?
Defensive for the Commanders, Marshawn Lattimore.
Wait. I do know it, but it's a tricky one. Look, we only signed him, he's played 5 minutes for us? It's not fair. 23.
23, there we go. See, it's perfectly fair. 23. Eagles. Okay, so we're on, what is it? It's 2-1 to Chris now. Jordan Mailata.
Oh my God. Not a chance. This is the city game, isn't it? Who invented this?
Who invented this? Who?
11? No, it's not. That's Brown. That's Brown.
No, it's 68. So a chance to win it, Chris. A player that I mentioned earlier as well. Ben Sinnott. We're getting harder.
Oh, God. Hey, again, can you pick a player that's been on the field for our team?
He caught 1 touchdown earlier in the year.
God, was it this year or last year? Ben Sinnott. Right, well, using logic, hold on a second. He's got to be in the 80s because there's a tight end grouping. I think Ertz is 87. Oh, I've Sinnott. Oh, it's 83, 85. I'm going with 85.
It is 82.
Oh, hey.
Okay, so a chance to level it up, Nathan, a player you said earlier, whose name I genuinely didn't think would come up on this podcast until this point, but you did say the name earlier. Tanner McKee.
16?
16 is absolutely right.
Oh, no!
It's choice.
Back.
Okay, so I did this. I
only know one number that's McLaurin, right? So we just cut,
Well, let's see if you can be a star with the last one. We've got the punter to end. Tress
So that's
Way.
easy. Tress Way. Now, that's an interesting one because he gave his number up to the guy wanted 0. Is that right? So he became number 2.
He became number 10.
Oh, die.
So we're 2-2. We're 2-2. We're going to go with the starting positions as the tiebreakers then. So Nathan, running back, Saquon Barkley.
Oh,
26.
Lovely, of course. Brian Robinson. Chris?
8.
8. Okay, we're still in it. We've done the first choice wide receivers, so we'll skip through
Oh,
that.
no. Okay, wait.
Let's go to the first choice tight ends. Dallas got it.
Wolf.
Woof,
5.
that's not a number.
5. Woof. 5, I think.
Sorry?
5 we'll go with.
No, much higher again. Dallas got it. It's 88.
Oh.
So Zach Ertz then, Chris. To win it.
Yeah, I know. And after just slagged him, and oh dear,
He's fair weather fans.
I feel. Yeah, well, he's an Eagle, you see, so I can't really mentally picture him ever. 87.
No.
Oh, are you kidding me? You're kidding me. I swear he is.
86. You've got John Bates is the tight end who wears 87, and then Colson Yankoff, fourth choice one, is number 41.
We have a guy called Yankoff.
Yeah.
What's his job in the team?
Tight end.
Right, he grips it well. Okay, let's move on.
Well, do you know what? I think instead of
just call it a draw. Yeah.
Instead of putting more pain, we'll call it overtime. We'll say that it's a draw in regular. Well done to you. I mean, Nathan, you might look up tight end numbers, but again, Chris, after Jayden Daniels, I think there was littered with errors.
JD5, I know. Why do they call him JD5? Someone tell me.
Well,
shocking.
Yeah, that would be the number. Listen to last week's episode. Andy talks all about his love of JD5. We're just going to quickly round off by going to our partners with FantasyGameDay.app. It's the online app where you can set a fantasy lineup for the weekend's games. There's a £5 entry or a £20 entry on Championship Stars this weekend. If you use the code HuddleUK, you get a free £7.50 after setting your first lineup. So please remember to do that and gamble responsibly. But the three of us are going to have a little look at who our captain choices would be. They'll be on the screen if you're watching the podcast here on YouTube. They range in price. The most expensive player we've thought a lot about today being Saquon Barkley, up there with about 8,000. I think 8,200 is his price tag. He's far and away the most expensive player. Going down to Zach Ertz, who we were just talking about, is a modest 4,000, and then lots of players in between. You can't pick a quarterback as your captain where you get double points. That would be a little bit unfair. Nathan, are you a fantasy player yourself?
I am, yeah. I've actually used this, I think, once or twice now. I've been on Fantasy Game Day, and I've awful, not very good
so far. But
yeah.
Maybe this is the chance to give some advice and turn it around. Who would you be setting as your captain this week?
I don't want to be boring and put. This is why I'm terrible. I don't want to be boring and pick Barkley, so I'm going to go with. Let's go with AJ Brown.
AJ Brown, if he puts his book down for a moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, the great pick, AJ Brown. I think he's going to be a key part of this game as well, because if you can get him involved, that will spell trouble for Washington, that's for sure. Chris, are you over the years play fantasy football?
Nope, I suck at it.
You suck at it.
Can't remember the numbers, you see.
Well, yeah, that is very true. If you had to pick a player, though, a non-quarterback who you think is going to have a big weekend, doesn't have to be Commanders or Eagles,
Yeah.
It could be for the other game as well.
I'm not going to pick an Eagle, am I? Well, I suppose that's again why I suck at it. That's why I suck at Fantasy. I just go all Commanders, and then you're like, that's not going to do well. So interestingly, AJ Brown is a legend, right? But McLaurin is better in that controversial way. I mean, statistically, he is. So yeah, it's McLaurin. The younger, fresher, he doesn't, so there you go.
You're both back in your number one wide receivers. Good. That's good loyalty. I admire that. I won't tell you who my pick is. You can listen to tomorrow's episode if you want to hear mine. I'll tell you boys afterwards. I'll tell you boys. It won't come as a surprise for you. But if you want to hear mine, the Huddle UK's pick, that will be on tomorrow's AFC episode. Thank you very, very much for joining us. I say that episode will be out tomorrow. We talk all things Chiefs and Bills, and they say who they would like to pick or who they would prefer to pick out of the Eagles or the Commanders in their episode. It'd be interesting to see who they would like to play in the Super Bowl. As always, there's loads of great new content over at www.huddleuk.com. Nathan's story went up. I believe, Chris, you've got a story for me to look at the moment I finished recording this, so I'll get on that. That'll be up on Friday. Enjoy the weekend. Good luck to your teams, boys. Good luck to all your listeners if your teams are still playing this weekend. And we will catch you in next week's episode of the Huddle UK podcast.